Hello again, and welcome to the channel. I'm Anthony, your favorite bearded quality engineer from testRigor, the #1 codeless test automation tool powered by intelligent generative AI. If this is your first time here, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below with your thoughts or questions. We've got a lot more coming your way. Today's video is all about SAP testing, roles, skills, and key interview questions. All of this comes from our write-up, which you can find at testRigor.com. So let's get into it. SAP still powers mission-critical operations for the world's largest enterprises, from finance and HR to supply chain and manufacturing. Whether you're working on an S/4HANA migration, a Greenfield implementation, or simply testing a standard upgrade, the role of QA is crucial. SAP QA professionals validate complex business processes, ensure third-party integrations are functioning, and maintain compliance throughout the entire test cycle. The need for skilled, efficient SAP testers is only growing. So let's start with the core responsibilities of a SAP QA professional. A QA engineer in SAP is expected to plan and execute tests across various SAP modules like materials management, sales and distribution, financial accounting, human resources, and production planning. They must also perform functional and regression testing and validate interfaces like intermediate documents, business application programming interfaces, remote function calls, and middleware integrations. They also have to assist with UAT, defect triage, and cutover testing, collaborating with consultants, business applications software integrated solution teams, and business users, all to ensure testing aligns with business needs. If you're finding this helpful, don't forget to like the video and leave a comment, letting us know which SAP module you work with the most. Now for the bread and butter. Let's talk about skills. Key capabilities SAP QA testers need in 2025 include deep knowledge of SAP core modules, understanding of integrations with external APIs and tools, ability to validate SAP Fiori and mobile responsive applications, awareness of security and compliance frameworks like segregation of duties, and general data protection regulation, experience with S/4HANA, migrations, and cloud deployments, strong defect documentation, and stakeholder communication skills. And these skills aren't just a nice to have, they're must have for a modern SAP QA career. Now, we'll go over a series of QA interview questions designed to help you prepare for your next fulfilling SAP QA role. Our first question: how do you perform integration testing between SAP modules like materials management and finance accounting? The suggested approach to answer this question is to highlight any major transactions, data flow points, and validation of data consistency across modules. You can achieve this by conducting integration testing between materials management and finance accounting to verify that the procurement transactions accurately generate accounting entries. A goods receipt followed by an invoice posting should generate correct journal entries in finance accounting. This validation process involves the verification of GL postings, tax calculations, and vendor balances. Testing includes error handling and rollback scenarios as well. For our next question, explain how you approach testing in an SAP S/4HANA migration project. The core of this approach is to discuss data migration, regression, business process validation, and Fiori-related testing. For a working example, in an S/4HANA migration, testing might include the validation of migrated data. You would need to test existing business processes in the migrated state and check for performance of the new UIs such as Fiori. Backward compatibility is checked through regression testing. It is necessary to reconcile financial data, material master, and transactional history after migration. Custom code and enhancements must also be revalidated. Now, question 3. What is your strategy for testing SAP jobs and background processing? At the base of the strategy, you would highlight the significance of timing, dependency of jobs, and log validity checks. In an example using SM37, batch jobs tests are mostly focused on timely execution, correct output, and error-free execution. Transaction SM37 is to check the logs for status and results. Check dependencies between jobs are also verified for the correctness of the sequence and data flow. The test cases also include failure and retry scenarios. Moving on to question 4. How do you test master data and its impact on downstream transactions? You would be required to explain why you need to verify consistency, data relationships, and real-world usage. To set the stage, master data validates the completeness, mandatory fields, and correct mappings for the material master, vendor, customer, etc. Part of a sample strategy, downstream impacts are confirmed by testing transactions, purchase orders, invoices, delivery, etc., using this data. Discrepancies or absence of data in the master records may rupture entire business flows. Change logs and dependencies are also checked. Staying on the testing topic, question 5. How do you validate IDOC processing in SAP during testing? A suggested approach is to explain how to test outbound and inbound IDOCs, checking queue status, and handling processing errors. A sample answer can consist of WE02 and WE19 transactions that are used to test IDOCs, as they help simulate real-time data flow. You must validate field mapping and segment completeness as well. IDOCs with errors are checked for error codes, and those records are recreated with the fixed data. Tests cover happy path and negative cases, for example, missing data or wrong formats. Now, let's transition to the next question. How do you handle testing for role-based access and security in SAP? A good start would be to discuss why the previous question's strategies are necessary to validate access in SU01, SUIM, SU53, and SOD compliance. In more detail, security testing is used to validate that users with specific roles can access only the allowed transactions and data. SU01 is used to verify role assignments, and SU53 is used to diagnose access errors. Testing also enforces segregation of duty policies, whereby conflicting responsibilities are prevented. Attempts to gain unauthorized access and audit logs are also reviewed. With security top of mind, let's shift to question 7. How do you test data integrity across multiple SAP modules? Focusing on cross-module validation like materials management to finance accounting, or sales and distribution to materials management, and test case design would be a great way to ensure data integrity. Taking a more detailed view, data integrity is also validated by performing a transaction in one module and checking its reflection in the other. Like a sales order in sales and distribution correctly reserves stock in materials management and produces billing entries in finance accounting. Modular consistency such as document flow, totals, update status, required related test cases and should encompass full end-to-end workflows. Speaking of end-to-end, on to question 8. How do you validate business process scenarios like order to cash or procure-to-pay in SAP? As a candidate, you should explain the process, use of milestones, and finally mention end-to-end tests. A more complete answer is shaped by testing sales order creation, delivery, invoice, and accounting entry generation in an end-to-end scenario like order to cash. Data correctness, status changes, and updates to the system are verified for each step, ensuring an error-free experience. PR creation, PO generation, goods receipt, and vendor payment are part of the procure-to-pay process. Testing makes sure all the modules and workflows work together in harmony. Workflows are the name of the game with our next question. How do you test SAP workflows and approval mechanisms? Start by explaining how routing, escalation, decision logic, and notifications are tested. To further the point, SAP workflows are tested to make sure triggering conditions are accurately implemented, approval logic is routed properly, and notifications are triggered in a timely manner. rejection, rework, and escalation paths are also verified. Progress is tracked via transaction SWIA and workflow logs. With this, successful test case execution makes sure that delays and incorrect routing does not hamper the business. Still hanging in there? We're almost halfway there with question 10. What are the key elements to consider when testing SAP Fiori applications? The QA engineer would want to differentiate UI behavior, role-based access, performance, and background congruence as a start. A robust test strategy includes performing SAP Fiori app tests to validate the responsive design, functional correctness across screens, and data consistency with the SAP backend. Validation of tile visibility and navigation paths based on your role is done as well. It is also tested for performance with various loads and integration with backend systems. They often include accessibility and usability checks. Now let's make our way to question 11. How do you handle negative testing in an SAP environment? A good start would be to list invalid inputs and describe how the system raises errors or blocks transactions. It is important to remember that negative testing is about entering erroneous data. For example, entering blacklisted materials or non-existent cost centers. Error messages should be suitable, or the system should block processing. For example, an error should be triggered when a financial document is posted without a mandatory tax code. This helps test system robustness and data accuracy. Data is integral as a part of question 12. How do you validate SAP reports and data extracts? As a candidate, you must mention validation techniques, cross-checking with database tables, and report logic verification. Generated reports are validated by comparing results with underlying SAP tables like BKPF or BSEG for financial data. Filters, layout, and summary totals are tested for accuracy. Large data volume handling and export functionalities must also be verified. Report logic is aligned with business requirements for completeness and correctness. But collaboration is the name of the game for question 13. How do you make sure your test cases are aligned with business processes in SAP? Ensure there's a conversation about working with functional consultants, mapping test cases to business flows, and reviews with business partners. With real-world concepts applied, test cases are created in collaboration with functional consultants and mapped to real business scenarios. Functional specs and business process documentation are used as references. Each test case includes expected outcomes, input values, and dependencies. Regular reviews with business users ensure alignment and completeness. Going live with a new version needs to be structured as the next question touches on. What is cutover testing and how is it performed in SAP? Some key and necessary concepts that should be mentioned are pre-go-live validation steps and transactional readiness testing. As the name implies, cutover testing validates that the system, master data, and transactional data are ready for production use. It simulates final day scenarios such as inventory balances, open POs, and account balances. Testing also includes execution of business-critical workflows and job schedules. It helps ensure a smooth go-live with minimal disruptions. And remember, smooth is the name of the game. The next question assists in that smooth delivery experience as well. How do you perform UAT in SAP projects? Communication is the key to success here, where user participation, business scenario execution, and feedback loops are discussed. Using those concepts, UAT involves business users executing real-life scenarios to validate the system from an end-user perspective. Test scripts are designed to mirror daily operations, and feedback is collected for gaps or enhancements. Any defects are tracked and resolved before final sign-off. UAT confirms the system meets business needs. Next, question 16 touches on new versus existing. How do you make sure your testing strategy supports both Greenfield and Brownfield implementations? Candidates should contrast the focus areas, new system versus migrated system, and testing scope differences. As a base of understanding, it's important to know that in Greenfield, testing validates newly built configurations, business processes, and master data from scratch. In Brownfield, testing focuses on regression, historical data validation, and custom object compatibility. Data migration accuracy and performance benchmarks are critical. The strategy is adapted based on the implementation approach. Now, shifting back to test data validation, how do you validate batch input sessions and LSMW data loads? In general, you would need to explain field mapping, load logs, and post-load transaction validation. Sample approaches would explain that batch input sessions and LSMW loads are tested by verifying field mappings, mandatory field population, and conversion logic. Post-load sample transactions are reviewed to confirm correctness. Logs are analyzed for error or skipped records. Data integrity and completeness are the primary validation goals here. Where will all this test validation take place? Question 18 has some insight. How do you manage test environments for SAP projects? Test environment management concepts start with coordination with business application software integration solution or BASIS teams, establish versioning, and environment consistency strategies. More specifically, test environments are managed in coordination with BASIS to keep correct configurations, data refreshes, and transport movement. Environment naming, dev, QA, UAT, pre-prod is standardized. Test data consistency across environments support valid test execution. Regular sync with production help maintain reliability. So how do we measure success or challenge areas? This next question has you covered. What key performance indicators or KPIs do you use to measure SAP testing effectiveness? You should be able to list common testing KPIs and explain how they reflect QA performance. Common KPIs include test execution rate, defect density, test coverage, and defect leakage. UAT, defect ratio, and business process validation rate also reflect effectiveness. First pass yield and cycle time per test cycle are monitored. These metrics help optimize QA processes and identify areas for improvement. Lastly, communication can ensure a project rises or falls. And question 20 ties it all together. How do you handle cross-team collaboration during SAP testing? A suggested approach would be to talk about syncing with functional, basis, integration, and business teams. More specifically, cross-team collaboration is managed through regular stand-ups, shared test plans, and communication tools. Coordination with functional consultants ensures accurate scenario coverage. Integration with basis helps manage the environment and job schedules. Stakeholder feedback is incorporated through structured review cycles. Thanks again for watching. If you found this content helpful, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. Leave your comments and questions below. We're here to help you become the best QA professional you can be. I'm Anthony from testRigor, wishing you clear test logs, fast defect resolution, and smooth go-lives. See you in the next video.